Not yet found that peace of mind. It seems like you get searching for a long time. I finally got myself together. You see, I found the light that's so much better. Now my life is so intense. And it's all because my God has sure seen just like clay in a potter's hand. My life was being shaped by things I could not understand. I thought that I was hurt, but not by my purpose. So being easy, I was just on the stand. Confusion was all I had till I learned that God seems to be the comfortable and free. No more love. Now my life is just beginning. And it's all because when you get tired of running, I know where you can go. You have me there for so long. Now here it's coming. So you were true, and the truth will set you. You'll be so free.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us this morning for Quran Salat Institute. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing on the subject of creation-supported social logic and the meaning of Ghurrur. So we listened to the last half hour of last week's class, and we're going to continue right away with the others. So I left the plate up here that we're going to begin with so that you can kind of get ahead of it, read the notes, get with the idea, and you can, let's just call it, ride a little bit better along with us. What are we doing here? Because naturally we have to think about in the background, and the operating system for everything that we're talking about is the Quran, is the life model of Prophet Muhammad, it is al-Islam, and of course it is the particular lens, the epistemology that Imam Muhammad rahimahullah provides for us, that we're looking at this through. Indeed, creation supported social logic is language of Imam Muhammad. And so I just want to restate, so you don't lose the handle on why we're doing as we continue on this course. This being the third part under Ghurrur, under the meaning of Ghurrur. And what are we doing? We're translating the complicated ideas and theories into language, into the language of the common person, so they can get the benefit. Now, it's not that Imam Muhammad's language is complicated. For some, it's complicated until you understand it. But then that is the part of my role, I would say, is to bring edification. And we spent last week explaining and defining clearly what edification means from the Imam. So that is what we're doing. So we're doing both of those things. We're translating complicated ideas and theories into the language of the common person so that they can get the benefit of it. And we are also providing edification for what Imam Muhammad has done. All these things, all this reading that is outside of specific quotations from Imam Muhammad, this is edification. This is for translating the complicated ideas and theories. This is to make it more accessible to you, what may not be as accessible without the benefit of this knowledge. And Allah knows best. If you don't need it, then you're in good shape, inshallah. But you're going to have to be able to help somebody else get it. Even if you get it, you're going to have to be able to help somebody else get it. And sometimes you have to go outside of the language that is your core language in order to translate it for their benefit. So enough of that. The ideas that we're going to continue on are what we ended with last week, but with just a little more amplification of it. So we were quoting from Professor John Vervaeke, Canadian professor of the University of Toronto, I believe, when he did this piece entitled "Awakening from the Meaning Crisis: Continuous Cosmos and the Modern World Grammar." And so we took a quote from him, and we mentioned it, as you heard if you listened again. If you heard it last week, it's fine. So I'm going to pick up with that and then amplify it a little bit and then go on to something new. So he's saying that people will talk about a new world mythologically. That doesn't mean think of it as a literal scientific thing, nor merely what we call metaphorical. So it's not scientific and it's not metaphorical exclusively in the way that the common world understands it. Mythological in this sense is neither scientific nor just metaphorical. So what's this new world, he asks? Well, it's a new world view. This new mythological worldview uses the mythology of two worlds. One idea is the everyday world, which is the world of the untrained mind, which is a mind that is out of touch with reality. Now, reality here, we're not saying somebody's intoxicated, somebody's drunk, somebody, under the effect of hallucinogens or anything like that. No, it's the common everyday untrained mind that walks around living the life that they have been acculturated to. So it's a mind that's out of touch with reality. For us in al-Islam and the Quran, haqq is reality, right? So the average person is not in touch with that reality. And so further defining that untrained mind, it is a mind that is not consciously ordered in its thought patterns by the design of Allah in the universe or in human nature. Very important. I'm going to read that again. Now, this is actually my statement. Okay, so it's in parentheses. A mind, I'm defining this untrained mind, a mind that is not consciously ordered in its thought patterns by the design of Allah in the universe, that is, there's a design in the universe, or in human nature. There's a design for Allah, the design of Allah in human nature. All right. They're alive, but unconscious, that is, unaware, not aware of the nature of the macrocosm or the microcosm. These people, they are in ghurrur. So that's really the majority of people. I've quoted often from Charles T. Tart, I believe the name of it, The Intuitive Edge, and the quote, a long quote about the effects of the desire and the motivations of culture. It basically ends with people who come into a state that is called cultural consensus trance. Cultural consensus trance. There's so many things that people who belong to the same culture, they just take it for granted. They take it as a given. They don't even think about it. And everybody who is a part of that culture also feels the same way, and also thinks the same way. So we are basically uncritical about whatever happens between us in those brief encounters and conversations. We presume ourselves to be speaking about the same things, and unless there's some kind of critique or some kind of awakening for the person, then we just continue to move about, and everything seems to go well according to whatever that culture has to offer, as long as everybody is in this shared cultural consensus trance. Okay, but that from the perspective of the destiny of a human being, that is living life in an illusion. That is a matrix. And that is ghurrur. When you're in that state, you're living, moving about, but you're in ghurrur. You're operating on illusion. But it's a shared illusion. And since it's a shared illusion, okay, everything's good. Okay. A couple of things coming to mind. Of course, obviously the movie The Matrix. The other thing is also that movie Inception, right? So as far as Inception, there's a situation where a person, they show up, they're on their mission, they show up in somebody else's dream. When you show up in somebody else's dream, then you're showing up in somebody else's head. But the way that technology, they had the technology, according to this movie, to be able to get in somebody's head, get in somebody's dream, and they not know that you are an operator from another head, another mind that is inside of your head, inside of your dream, coming in there to do something. That's the whole mission, right? But what happens is, if you act in a way that is contrary to something fundamental to the dreamer, if you, in your acting inside of their dream, act in a way that's contrary to the fundamental dreamer, the fundamentals of the dreamer, then all of those elements which are personified as people, all of those, they start looking at, who is that? What is he doing? Mashallah, I've been in experiences like that, not from a dream perspective. I'm talking about from a real world perspective, but I'm not going to go into it. But the point is that you as long as you don't act in a way that's contrary to what is deemed to be true to that world, i.e. the mind of that person, then you're okay. But as soon as there's a sense, just one sense of your presence being counted to what's going on in the common consensus trans of the group or the place that you are in, well, then they're all going to turn on you. I'm telling you, you can apply that to the politics of this world right now. You can, and what people say is our way of life, and whoever is acting against that way of life, I mean, it is just as dangerous. Literally, it's just as dangerous in this world right now, relative to that scenario, and that scenario is in so many ways playing itself out. So we'll get back to that, because I know the political season is coming upon us, and the reality of all this, man, is going to be coming. So we have to get stronger. I'm speaking mainly as Muslims right now, Bilalian Muslims particularly. I'm saying, hey, you gotta get ready. You gotta get, stay ready so you don't have to get ready in reality. All right, but let's go. There's so much so much of a pull. So what we were saying, Ghurrur, consensus trance, and okay, so we'll leave that. So in broad culture, now this is back to Verveki's comments. He says, so in the broad culture, when we use the word myth, we tend to mean a falsehood that is widely believed. You say, oh, that's a myth. That's how, in the broad culture, in the mind of the untrained, in the cultural consensus trance, when the word myth is used, it means falsehood that we all agree in that it is false, right? And that's this. So the professor says, and that's unfortunate, meaning that having this monocular, this one limited view and definition for the term myth, he says, and that's unfortunate because we've lost the term, meaning that what you are, that label that you're using to label what I'm trying to talk to you about, this category of wisdom that I'm trying to bring to you, because you have a false label on this category of wisdom, then there is no term in your vocabulary for what I am talking about. So it's sort of like the circumstances and our language situation forces us to use a word which, for the vast consensus in this culture, it means something that's inappropriate. It lost its original value, and so this is what he's, quote, lamenting, right? He said that's unfortunate because we've lost the term for what I'm talking about. Now he says, let me tell you what myth actually is. You see, myths, he said, aren't false stories about the ancient past. They are symbolic stories about perennial. Perennial means that they are always present, right? They are symbolic stories about perennial patterns that are always with us. And I've explained, last week we explained, and I'll just mention in passing here, abstract composites. Abstract composites. Okay, let me put this in the category of fun facts. For those of you who want to spend some time, just go look at, because it's just so important for you to get in. So let me just tell you. All right, you've heard about savants, right? You've heard about savants, right? So just look it up, YouTube, etc. Rain Man. You got the Rain Man types, right? And you can find a YouTube where it says the real Rain Man, the true Rain Man, or whatever. You can find that. And there's so many others. There's many others. Okay. So you have calendrical savants, right? You can ask them, what day of the week is it going to be? January 23rd in the year 2244. And they can tell you what day of the week, January 3rd, 2244 would be. But that person can't be trusted to go out their front door, go to the store, and come back home safely. Something else is not right in their mental makeup, but they can access that. You have those also, any kind of mathematical calculation. You can give them a mathematical calculation to make. What's the square root of 239,354? Whatever. And then bang. Mathematical. So you have the calendrical, you have the mathematical, you have those who there's a guy who, speaking of just powers and potentials, they put him in a helicopter and they just took him over some area in whatever major city, I think it was New York or whatever, and then brought him back and then set him down in front of this large canvas, right? And he reproduced in detail, in art, reproduced in detail that place that he saw from the helicopter when they sat him back down in front of the canvas, and then he did the whole thing all over again. Those that can replay a piece of music perfectly, piano, etc., replay a piece of music perfectly after just hearing it one time. They just hear it one time, go to the piano. These are savants, right? You have the artistic savants, mathematical savants, calendrical savants, those who are memory, they have memories and the like. One thing that what I want to point to, you can look up this person, his name Jason Paget. Jason Paget, Padgette. Just look up his story. Went to a bar one night, somebody, they beat him up into like unconsciousness, right? But then when he came out of the coma that he was in for a period of time, he knew high levels of mathematics and could actually put those mathematics into artistic form. He could take the math and draw forms that are reflective of the math that he was able to see. Einstein's theories and the like, was able to put them into geometrical forms and pictures, etc. Jason Paget, right? So you have this knowledge of like physics and laws of physics and the like, and mathematics, etc., and then art, being able to translate each one into the other. So many others. So once you get over there in the world, you know how these AIs operate. Let me see what's going on here. Let this thing stopping on its own now. All right, we'll see what happens. All right, so what are you saying, Fahim? What I'm saying is this: these abstract composites. Okay. There's a realm of reality. When in actually in British parlance, I'll call it British parlance, they don't talk about math as like one thing. It's talked about as maths. Here's another movie, The Man Who Knew Infinity, true story. The Man Who Knew Infinity. And he would come up with, devise, discover mathematical formulas, principles, laws, rules that the Europeans of Oxford and whatever the major universities are over there, he would come up with answers that they would have to affirm that, yeah, it's true, but how did you get there, right? So for him, it comes across as something intuitive, but once it's presented to the people who know the steps of the math to get there and what it speaks to, they're trying to figure out how did you come to that, correct though it is, conclusion. How did you come to that? And he couldn't explain it. But inside the movie, it's like it has a religious overtone, a religious source. But it's true science, true history, not fiction. It's real name. Look it up. The Man Who Knew Infinity. Now, all that is to say this, brother and sister. There's a world of reality that's behind everything that we see. We have the physics and you have metaphysics, right? So the plotting that man has done to come up with the maths, right? Geometry, whatever, trigonometry, calculus, all these other. It's expressed as being discovered, right? It's expressed as being discovered. Sometimes someone would say well, they say about Isaac Newton, for example, that Isaac Newton he created calculus, right? He created calculus. No, it's more proper since it operates in a lawful manner. It's a lawful system that pre-existed Isaac Newton. It always existed prior to Isaac Newton, right? Of course, you go back to ancient Kemet, you go back to pre-Pythagoras, you go back to the pyramid builders, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and the mathematics that those structures and that they portray is saying, well, we already knew this, right? And then Pythagoras and the rest of that. And so it is with Isaac Newton, who's also quoted as saying, if I am able to see farther than others, it's because we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So the idea is that as new minds come in, those minds are able to draw down, if you will, from phenomena, reality. That reality is behind what you see. But once that mind that comes into existence among the human being, it's able to reach into and beyond the physical to the metaphysical and bring that back into the world and then apply it in a way where those who are seeing it being applied say, well, yeah, you can't deny that. The proof is in the pudding. That's it. But it's not always coming by means of going from the bottom up. Sometimes it comes down, so it's experienced like an intuition. Like I mentioned, the savants, right? Savants didn't go to college to get that. They didn't get any training to get that. It is quote unquote intuitive. But the point is that they are not creating it. They are not creating it. It already exists. So the point is accessing what already exists from behind, I'm going to call it the veil. And this is what Iqbal talked to us about when he said that the laws of nature are the garments of reality. The laws of nature are the garments of reality. So these things that we have that we are in possession of, again, the maths and the other aspects, these rules and laws and principles operating in creation that get discovered and written down and and projected and preserved for the benefit of the world. Where did they come from? They were not created. They are just exposing and quote unquote revealing to the world phenomena that is already true in nature, but until the mind arrives that can see, experience, understand. Okay, Einstein, again, another one. It's like he wasn't discovering, he wasn't creating those things that are identified with him as being, a source of information for E equals MC squared, etc. That truth, E equals MC squared, was already true before Einstein was born. It was true before he was born. But nobody had the mind to bring it in, understand it, translate it from their head onto paper, and now it belongs to the world. Now it has a place in the world. But it was already existing trillions of years before Einstein was born. But when Einstein got the mind that became the receptacle for it, capable of pulling it down and then making it concrete in the world, with that, now it's in the world. The world benefits from it. But it was existing before Einstein and before anybody else. But it was not available and accessible to the world until the Einstein mind. And it applies to every other thing that is of that magnitude. Okay, so that's what happens, right? Obviously, with regard to when we talk about things like, math, laws of nature, et cetera, I'm using the savants to be the example to show that it already existed and it can come even to a mind that is not built up for that purpose, okay? And it can come it comes through a let's just call it an opening that comes as a result of whatever trauma, difficulty, dysfunction, pathology, dis-ease in some cases happens in certain minds, it actually tears a veil between this world and the metaphysical aspect of the world of abstract composites. And so it sort of leaks through. It leaks through into the quote unquote the mind consciousness of the savants. Okay, but the point is that the savants, they had nothing to do with creating it or anything. They just became a window, an aperture, a crack through which, I'm just using that metaphor, through which, because the universe is uniform and there's no cracks or fissures in it, but that's an analogy, a metaphor. So it's like, okay, it comes through. It came through because that mind got situated through the trauma, through the birth defect or whatever it might have been in their cases, that became an avenue for a stream of certain type of knowledge that already existed in the universe. But because there was a receptor for it on this side of that veil, then here it comes, right? And what I'm saying is that it just gives us proof, a way of understanding that world already exists. But quote unquote normal people, they have to be developed. They have to have exercises, mental exercises, character developments as persons that build them up to come to a place where they can get into that realm of thinking. I hope I've said it. I'm trying. It exists, but there's a bar between the normal world, that our everyday living world. There's a bar between our everyday living world and that metaphysical transcendent world. There's a natural bar. It's not natural for common human beings to see all that. No. There are occasions, in the case of the savants, where they are not normal from a neurological point of view. They are not normal, but their particular abnormality creates a channel or a means, a stream, or whatever, an opening, because since there is no since everything is coherent, everything is continuous. But in the case of those particular individuals, there is a fissure, but it's a fissure, Fissure, but it's between their mind and that space. When I say that space, I mean the metaphysical. And so therefore, in a particular stream, if it's math, if it's art, if it's memory, if it's the calendar, okay, well, that's just their mind, their stream of consciousness is cracked in that particular piece, and so it comes through. Doesn't change the universe. It's like that's the way the universe is, and that's who they are. You can study that further. The point is that now for everybody else, again, the other great minds of the world. You choose your own great mind of the world. George Washington Carver. Let's get some color into this, so-called color into this. George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver, in his very special connection and relationship to plant life, that is a quote unquote marvelous connection. There, he had a different kind of metaphysical, spiritual relationship with agriculture, plant life, and the like, that was transcendent to the mind of the average one, whether they are trained in the field or untrained in the field. His connect was there, but his connect is also a natural connect. He was quote unquote normal for all intents and purposes. There was no savant-ish breaks or traumas or birth defects that put him in that position. No, he evolved through his interests, through his nature, et cetera, and he came to a point of seeing and connecting with nature in a way that nobody else could really compare in his time. I don't even know if since his time. All right. So the point is that higher knowledge, that deeper knowledge, that profound knowledge, that hawk is always there. This is the point. There is knowledge beyond it's beyond our imagination. You know, it's Elon Musk does come to mind because he's getting that label deserved or not. Maybe he deserves it. I don't know. He's doing stuff. I don't know. But then also, I got to watch out for the those folks bear watching. But setting that aside, the idea is that he's doing stuff, quote unquote, that has not been done by those individual citizens before him. Oh, we can go back to Hidden Figures, and the reality of our sisters who were the computers, right? And then to speak of the leader of it and her magnitude of knowledge of math and her connection and her intuitive touch with it, that was like, hey, and she was quote unquote normal in that respect, but gifted in that sense. But again, another demonstration of there's something that's already existing, but you've got to be big enough to access it. You have to grow. See, normal people have to grow to the point where they can access what's behind the veil. Right? Yes. Yeah. And brother and sister, now I hope that's sufficient to let you know that there's this possibility that exists for you. As long as you are alive, you are in a position to get behind the veil. Yeah, you are in a position to get behind the veil. I'm using these words that are used in all these other kind of all of that. I'm not even gonna bring those other words up, because they're just like we just talked about myth. There are other words that are used to apply to what I'm speaking of that could be brought into the conversation, but they would be just as misunderstood as the common mind misunderstands myth. So I won't bring it. At another time we bring it up, because what I'm trying to push you away from and inshallah protect your potential sensitivity to go into the gravity of man, I need to get more into them YouTube videos that be talking about X, Y, Z, Z, Y, X. Okay, if you got a light to go into them caves, that's okay, it's fine. But if you don't have a light to go into those caves, and if you don't know what kind of creatures are inside those caves, don't mess with that. Don't mess with that. You won't make it out. Right? All right, I gotta leave it right there for right now. So when it says when he says that myths are symbolic stories about perennial patterns that are always with us, then that's the way that we need, and that's how Imam Muhammad was teaching us, particularly in the 70s and the 80s. I think genuinely around the time, I think we had a Ramadan session. I can't remember which one it was, but we had a Ramadan session, and somebody asked Imam about, I think it might even been about the Matrix, right? And somebody asked him about the Matrix, and the Imam said, "It's a good movie, go watch it, but I don't want you all depending on me for that kind of thing," right? So he had taught us, he given us a kind of an appetite and interest, woke us up to the fact of how films and how in the scientific world, etc., how they do that, how they manipulate, how they hide and reveal at the same time doing that. And so that's fine. But he said, but I don't want you to stay there. in terms of that. So the Imam kind of withdrew from doing those kinds of things because there was a time for it and there's a time not for it. And there's a part of me that want well, explain yourself. I'm not going to do that. If you can't feel the explanation through what I do and how I do what I do, then there's no explanation for you. You're not ready. Allahu alam. So in any case, so the point here is that these perennial patterns are always with us. And so this is what the Imam is talking to us. And this is what we're bringing as testimony to the fact that the Imam said that there are natural patterns in the creation, and you need to be in touch with those patterns in order to form your own thinking. Because if you don't use that as the foundation for your thinking, then you're going to have faulty thought patterns. You're going to have faulty thinking. And so therefore, when the Imam tells us about the scripture uses figurative speech and figurative expressions to speak to us about things that are scientific, actual, and very real. So figurative speech and figurative expression can be correlated in this with abstract composites, right? The figurative speech is telling you there's a realm of reality that transcends where you are right now. But if you can get in touch with what is meant by this personification, this abstraction, you can be in touch with that level of knowledge that's beyond what you see. That level of knowledge that exists and that is powerful, that is beyond what you see. But you have to, the path to it is by translating, interpreting, understanding how this thing in this world is pointing to something unseen in a realm beyond the physical. That's what we have. So I guess I keep going, and inshallah, we can get that better. Okay, so let's do that. Let's just move on, and inshallah, we'll leave some time to be able to ask questions for clarification if need be. So here, Verveke continues. He said, the real world is how the untrained mind, the real world, this haqiq for us, the real world is how the trained mind, the wise mind sees the world. You got two people standing right next to each other. One is an untrained mind, the other is a trained mind. They are in two different worlds. They are seeing two different worlds. Standing right next to each other, sitting right next to each other. One is seeing one world, the other is seeing another world. The untrained mind is seeing what the consensus trance causes them to see. The trained mind sees the world as it really is. That's the matrix and non-matrix kind of thing, right? It's how the world looks when that is the trained mind, is the mind that sees the world. And it is how the world looks when you're in touch with reality. That's the world they're seeing. They're seeing the way the world looks when you're in touch with reality, right? That's a big deal. Do you think you know or in touch with somebody who you can pretty much say that they have no idea what in the world is going on? Have you ever been sitting next to somebody like that? And you could say easily to yourself, they have no idea what in the world is going on. Brother and sister, most of the Bilalians, even if, 80-20 is a normal curve, no. We're talking 95, 97% have no idea of what the world is going on. And even when you pull out those people that are supposed to be deep into something, whatever it is, Allahu alam, Allahu alam, it's just the truth. I'm not trying to be at all just arrogant or anything like that. It's just true. You got people, they think they've grabbed some secret knowledge, They think they grab some knowledge that, yeah, y'all don't know this. You know, I'm not gonna name any names, but it's like you have no idea. I mean, they have grabbed something that the shaitan, that the Jacobite has thrown out there just because they know you have the appetite for it. I mean, literally, it is like fishing. Jacobite is the fisherman. He's the fisherman. And the fish are those people who they know that they have an appetite for something beyond what the world has given us. And then the Jacobites see you searching for something beyond what the world is offering. And so he puts his line together with the bait on it and throws it out there. And man, he got you. And to be hooked on something in that respect, it's sort of like, I mean, you get conviction, you get committed, you get devoted, you get, man, I ain't giving this up for nothing and nobody. And all the time you're dangling on the Jacobite's hook. I'm just saying. So the real world is how the trained mind, the wise mind, sees the world. It is how the world looks when you're in touch with reality. When your mind is not beset by illusion and delusion. When you have that sense that this is how things really are. This is the invitation, and this is the offering, this is the gift, this is the grace of Al-Islam. Al-Islam will enable you, by Allah's mercy and guidance, it will enable you to see for real, to see the real. And the Quran says here, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Surah Al-A'raf, Surah 7, Ayah 201. إن الذين اتقوا إذا مساهم طائف من الشيطان تذكروا فإذا هم مبصرون. صدق الله العظيم. Says, indeed, those who have taqwa, when an impulse or an idea or a thought from Satan touches them, they think and then they see correctly. All right. It's so very important. Now, put this on the side. It's coming, inshallah. Shaitan's work has everything to do with his ability to manipulate us through our urges and impulses of which we are unconscious, right? He's able to manipulate us through the urges and impulses of which we are unconscious. Now, we are all, every human being, we are all populated by urges and impulses and appetites, motivations, drives, sentiments, and aspirations, each of which wants to be in charge. Just think about it. Think about it. How many urges and impulses do you think are in your body? Just your body. So the body has urges and impulses. Then also your mind has urges and impulses, right? So it's like, how many different appetites do you think are running through you? How many different urges? How many different impulses? I mean, this is a symbol of our instincts and our impulses and our urges are the stars. The stars are a symbol of that, right? So how many do you think there are? All right. And there are some, because of the way that we are predisposed and because of the way that we are acculturated, there are some that rise up and become more powerful and more, well, attractive, or even also have more gravity than the others. It comes from our predisposition, comes from our socialization, so that such that one impulse kind of gets ahead of the others. And now that impulse, it has an aspiration, but it doesn't have a particular, it's not necessarily morally guided, rationally guided, spiritually guided, but it's an urge, it's an appetite, it's an impulse. Now, if we don't master that urge, that appetite, it does, even if you think it's a good thing, it could be like for prayer. It could be for prayer, right? And I'm just going to hit you with the hadith of the Prophet. There are those that I'm going to fast without ceasing. I'm going to pray without ceasing. I'm never going to touch women anymore. Okay, that appetite came up in some of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And the Prophet had to check them. He had to say, look, I fast and I break my fast. I pray and I sleep, and I marry women. And this is my sunnah. And whoever rejects my sunnah has nothing to do with me. But what is that? They even thought that those urges, those impulses, which were monastic and ascetic, etc., supposedly they're thinking that it was for good, right? No. See, so shaitan can move even your good urges and appetites to an extreme. Now it's diseased, right? But it was started out as a good thing. But then if it was not under management, now that good thing becomes a bad thing. Word enantiodromia. Either way, it's not Arabic, it's Greek. So the point is that I said it was a sidebar, but we're going to get to that because that's the big deal. And Al-Islam covers it, number one, by saying stay away from all extremes, right? That's Al-Islam, boom. And then also fasting in the month of Ramadan, and also other fasts, alhamdulillah, but Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, 30 days in accordance with what Allah, in a year, in the course of what Allah has ordered, that's what's necessary for your maintenance of your humanity. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his way is also for our excellence. If you want to be more excellent, then fasting outside of that time would drive you a little higher on the scale of things. Allahu Alam. But enough said in terms of those urges and impulses, because that's what shaitan cues into. He keys into urges and impulses that are not restrained, urges and impulses that are not domesticated. Those are your jinn, right? And so the idea, and so in those urges and impulses without a mind, see, that's Hawa without Adam. Those urges and impulses without a mind governing it are easy access to or for shaitan. And then shaitan is able to, at the unconscious level, because the mind not being conscious of what's going on in the unconscious makeup, shaitan can sneak in and subliminally get there and then work up that urge and that impulse until we wind up in hell. Allahu Alam. It ain't the hell that's the hell that shaitan brings you into in this world. It's not the hell that Allah has planned for Satan and all those who follow him. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go ahead and end it there. Those of you on Blog Talk, push one on your phone. You have any comments or questions? They are welcome right now for the next few minutes before we check out. And I can see those of you who are there. Assalamu alaikum. Latifa. Alhamdulillah. Charlotte. Assalamu alaikum. I don't know what VAF tech is. I'm going to assume it's a good thing. Alhamdulillah. There's another one, Donald Montgomery. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. And Khalika Mims. I was just looking at, just before I stepped in here, the Kansas City. So that's my Kansas City folks. So, I ain't mad. They're not the Oakland Raiders anymore, but some people say they'll always be the Oakland Raiders. That's what John Madden made his name. Las Vegas Raiders now. And so it's all good. So I'm with whoever wins. I'm kind of more inclined toward my Kansas City folks now. I got man love. MashaAllah, appreciate it. All right, so Blog Talk. Any comments, feedback? Push one on your phone, come on through. And beyond that, this is actually going to be the end of our day today. We look forward to getting with you all tomorrow. Wealth creation and preservation. Lots of things going on there. Me and my host, Camila Mahassan, Bilali, and Shuaib will be together. All right. So thank you so much, dear brothers and sisters. Everybody have a wonderful day. Allah's peace be on you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.